Okay, well, I think I'm recording, Tom, and if you click anywhere on the screen, you should be controlling the screen. And if it looks like we've got one person who called in with a phone number. Other than that, Carl Stumpf is, of course, a member of our Public Works Committee, and Middleton Review, I'm assuming, is George Zenz, who's...
And the phone number might be John Solon from our design team. He was going to be jumping on. I think he may act. No, I take that back. I think he's jumping on the video right now.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me? This is John Solon. That is my number.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. So that's your phone.
Yeah. I couldn't run in the conference room, so I'm just calling in from my desk. So
gotcha.
I will unmute. Okay.
I'm going to, whoops, what the heck? Didn't need that up.
Go. Much better.
It's always something. My computer hasn't been working very good, so I'm using my wife's, but I'm finding my way through some stuff that's set up a little bit differently. So everything's got a learning curve.
Sean, did you want to wait a couple more minutes to see if anyone else is going to join in on the video, or?
I think right now we've mostly got committee members. Alder Kathy Olson is here. Bob Lyons is in, committee member. I'm just going to change your name on the screen here, Bob. Slightly less confusion. So yeah, maybe if we just kind of hang out for a little while yet.
Okay.
I should have been ready with some funny cat videos or something.
John, could you just act a couple out?
From memory?
Yeah. I do have control over your screen right now, Sean. Do I have control over your files? Do I start poking around?
Hey, let's find out. That would be interesting. Of those who are on, Kathy, or I'm assuming George, with Middleton Review, did you have anywhere else to be tonight? Should we begin the presentation for you?
Not me. I'm
No?
fine.
All right. George? Well, hearing none, I'm prone to waiting a bit longer. See if a business owner or representative shows up.
Mhm. I did hear from a couple of the business owners, so if they
Okay.
don't, but we'll just hang on. I'm in no hurry.
Okay, good to know.
Hey, Sean, I had a question for you. Sean Stowski.
Hey, I'm here.
I was just watching the Public Works meeting from the 12th on the Pleasant View Road.
Sure.
And I wasn't aware that it went into 2 sections. So then there's nothing going to happen in 2021, correct?
That's a federal funding issue, not a number of sections issue.
But Middleton, we have some TIF money, don't we, in the budget for that this year? Or was I looking at the further years out? We do.
No, we do. For continued design, for property acquisition, well, real estate acquisition.
Okay, not construction. Right?
Not construction, that's
okay.
right. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I'll go back. Thanks.
Sure. It was a good open house type question, just different project. Well, I don't know, Tom. As one of my old friends used to say, I don't know if this is a sign that people just know that they're in good hands or if we're up against a World Series game.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is it game? It's game 5 tonight.
I don't know. I haven't been following it.
I heard 6, so.
Oh, that's right. I think the Dodgers won last night.
Yeah.
I suspect it's just a comfort level with you.
Thanks, Sean. I had one of these. The 1 year that the Brewers made the playoffs, was it like 2 years ago? I had one of these on the same night as a Brewers playoff game. So as expected, and it was in person too. We had about a half dozen people, but it was pretty limited.
Wow. Yeah. You could have had a little screen and screen thing going.
Yeah.
Oh, you're breaking that record tonight, Tom.
John sent out the agenda, so.
Yeah. Well, and like Kathy noted, we had a couple of emails today. I don't know, Kathy, were you planning to hang out for the actual Public Works meeting and presentation as well? Or did you want to get those
I
into the
could.
record here?
I just thought that this was where the business owners would have their input mainly. That's why I dialed in and trying to facilitate that too. But if you want to do it all in one at the Public Works meeting, I'm good with sticking around for that too.
I'll go at your preference. We literally have time on our hands here.
Are you giving the same presentation at Public Works then?
Yes.
Oh, then no, I can finish watching my
Okay.
View Road.
Okay.
So
I may drop my video and just grab a bite to eat while we're sitting around. I was going to do that later, but I might as well now.
I'll mute myself.
Unless you wanted to dine with me virtually, you know.
John, looks like the World Series game doesn't start till 7:15.
So we can't even put that on.
Same with NFL too. The Bears play at 7:15.
Oh, the Bears never play.
Yeah, careful. John's on the phone still. He's a Bears fan.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Don.
Hey, Sean.
Hey, Don.
Hello.
Well, it turns out the last 50 minutes are not going to sweep the Academy Awards this year.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, not even for cinematography. Nothing.
Won't even get a nomination for audio.
I know. I feel like we should have a sponsor for all this dead air.
Yeah. There's a lot of people willing to sell time or buy time right now. I mean, just call a
Honestly.
candidate. Yeah, they'll immediately give you cash.
Trump would probably buy some airtime right now from us.
Yeah, probably.
Sell it for cheap.
This was more like undirected meditation.
Well, I know we're all going to be meditating next Tuesday night.
Oh, for the end of election season?
Yeah, well, that too.
I'll be okay with that. Although I got a phone call yesterday from some unknown number, and I usually answer it because I at least like to say hi. But they wouldn't even talk to me. And I thought, well,
Really?
that had to be the least effective political call ever.
I'm so lucky. I get them because I have a 317 area code on my phone. I get calls from Indiana.
Oh, I did have
And Wisconsin.
one from some like committee to reelect Devin Nunes. And I said, I think he represents California someplace.
Yeah.
You're calling Wisconsin. He didn't seem deterred by that. He thought maybe I could just give him money anyway.
Yeah, that's all they're after. Funds. So Tom, is the Strand office full of Trump flags?
Say that again?
Is the Strand office full of Trump flags?
Oh, no, not here.
I can think of 2 cubicles that would have them flying high in the air.
We are neutral political around here.
There you go. It's the right way to go.
I grew up on a dairy farm, so I didn't even know what politics were until I got into college.
Ooh. Flunk that civic class, huh?
Off the grid, yes.
Huh. What kind of farm was that, Tom?
We had an operating dairy herd, Holsteins, and then some beef cattle. My parents, they sold the dairy herd about 10 years ago and now just have a beef farm up near Black River Falls, Wisconsin.
Oh, nice.
Oh. So they're in the snow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad texted me this morning. They had 2.5 inches last night.
Yuck. Although
Yeah.
I had a little on my bike ride in this morning. Not enough to show up, just enough to sort of, be annoying on my glasses.
Everybody's here early today.
Oh, we had an open house. Hey, Dan.
Hi. Oh, okay. That was why. That makes sense.
City Hall had opened for voting this morning too, didn't they?
I think Monday through Friday. Yeah, they're open.
I'll
It's
also
just
pull
one
up
to
Mike
four.
Davis' email.
What's that, Kathy?
Just 1 to 4, just the afternoon, right?
Oh, okay. I thought it was most of the day. Well, it's handy. We have a drop box right across the street anyway, so good news.
There's always a line though. I live right around the corner and it comes
Yeah.
all the way. Yeah.
I thought too, early voting seemed like a good idea to avoid the lines on election day, but the lines, frankly, might be longer today than they will be next week.
Yeah.
Doubtful.
I don't know. It seemed like an awful lot of absentee ballots went out.
Yeah, what did Mike Davis put out today that we have over 10,000 mail-in
60%.
ballots? Yeah.
60% have voted.
Okay.
I think we're going to have 3 polling places open.
4.
4. So they'll be able to handle that pretty easily.
Yeah.
Bob, is Peg going to work the polls? You're on mute. I can't hear you, but
Tom, where do your kids go to school now?
So Evan's a second grader. He would be at Pope Farm.
Okay,
And then Blake is still in 4K.
okay. Because James is supposed to be at Pope Farm.
Okay, yeah, we're excited to get in there at some point.
It looks gorgeous.
Yeah, we've been kind of peeking in the windows a little bit, and the kids wanted to check out the playground one day, and yeah, it looks like an amazing school.
Good. Now, the question is when.
Yeah.
I know. I'll see.
Yeah, that's so hard especially with little ones, you know?
Well, I will say I have both of them today, every Monday. And they come in and they're either online at school or on their iPads playing games, and they are getting everything done.
Well, that's good. I hear some horror stories that I can totally believe about not getting
Yeah.
plugged into virtual learning at the kitchen
Yeah.
table.
It might be, I've decided I just let them do it. So I'm not supervising, I'm not standing over.
Yeah.
And I think, they know they're responsible for it, and they really do a good job. And the teachers for James is fantastic.
That's pretty lucky. Yeah, it's hard to engage.
My daughter teaches in DeForest kindergarten, and they do have split classes, so she sees them all, usually 2 times a week. 2 Monday and Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday. And then last week, 2 second graders tested positive, so that classroom's empty for about 10 days.
Yeah, that's why we don't want to have in-person school.
Yeah. But she said the kids are more like August. They're not even close to being at October levels.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Salvage what you can.
The other thing I would say is my son spent 4th grade in Belgium. He was dumped into a completely French-speaking school. He did just fine eventually. So he learned how to speak French beautifully and missed a whole year of everything else and came back and did great.
Very cool.
So they can withstand a little more adversity than we give them credit for.
Kids roll with that.
Yeah.
It's just hard to stay engaged. That's all. I have, we're just heading towards 6:30 now, but I have, it looks like all Public Works Committee members present. Bob Lyons, Robert Burke, Dan Cody, Don Knorr, Carrie Schuffner I saw in, Carl Stumpf, and Susan West. So we're all here, and it's just now 6:30. So that'll conclude our open house with no questions from the public. But Bob, if you want to kick off our Public Works meeting, that'd be great.
Can't hear you, Bob. You're on mute. Still on mute, Bob.
Oh, there you go. Now he can. You're good.
There we go.
Okay.
All right.
Coming through.
We'll call this meeting of the Public Works Committee to order. I heard Sean say all members of the committee present, so we obviously have a quorum and can do business. Our first agenda item is the minutes of October 12th.
I move approval. Don?
All right, we have a motion to approve those minutes. Is there a second to the motion?
Second, Susan.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding the minutes? Hearing none, those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the October 12th minutes are approved. All right.
Perfect.
Item 2, Parmenter Street, Elmwood Avenue, and Aurora Street reconstruction design update. Tom, after a long sit, you get the floor here, I believe.
Thanks, Bob. I did stand. I went for a little walk anyway to stretch the legs. So, but the baseball game doesn't start until 7. I think 7:10 or 7:15. So we were trying to find reasons why nobody was coming in. But I guess if it's okay with you, Sean, I'll lead the presentation portion.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I think you can start by just clicking anywhere on the screen and you'll have it.
All right, I think I've got it. All right. Well, we just have about a dozen slides here just to hit some of the highlights on the downtown street project. Some of this will look pretty familiar if you were at the presentation last year. It's hard to believe it was just a little over a year ago when we had the first public involvement meeting. And then shortly after that, based on feedback from the Public Works Committee and Council, we kind of put things on hold for a little bit. And are starting to ramp up design again and anticipation for a construction project next year. So again, these are the slides for the public and business involvement meeting number 2 with today's date. This is for the Aurora Street, Elmwood Avenue, and the Parmenter Street reconstruction project. Just a few slides here, kind of hitting on some of the needs of the project and why the project is happening. So this is one of the only remaining concrete streets in the city of Middleton. The new street is proposed to be asphalt. Existing street is starting to fall apart, deteriorating with quite a bit of cracking and some heaving going on. Overall, the city crews are just much better equipped to handle maintenance on asphalt roadways as compared to the concrete roadways. And then overall, with some of that heaving and cracking that's occurring out there, they're starting to get some trip hazards and things like that kind of near the crosswalk areas. So this should also help clean up those areas as well. There's a couple different sections of water main replacement on the utility side that's anticipated to be replaced. Being on Parmenter Street is one area, and then on Aurora as well. Overall, the new main will help minimize the number of potential water main breaks and emergency shutdowns that could occur, as this main is very old. And there will be an upsize. The existing mains down there that we are upsizing are currently 6-inch diameter mains, and we are planning to upsize those to 8-inch diameter mains to help with overall capacity, but then also to meet the minimum size requirements that the DNR has in place. Another item I have here, buffer item and streetscaping elements to promote a pedestrian-friendly corridor. I'll talk a little bit more about the pedestrian or the buffer island in a couple of slides from now. But overall, we were looking for ideas to help reduce vehicular speeds along Parmenter Street. There were some complaints of quickly moving vehicles, I guess you could say, along Parmenter that we received from downtown businesses and residents. Overall, we're looking to promote safer crossings for pedestrians throughout the corridor, and in general, just to promote a more friendly, pedestrian-friendly downtown atmosphere. Again, in a couple of slides, I'll hit on more specifics on where we are planning to add some of these elements. So just zooming out a little bit here for a project overview. The areas highlighted in blue would be Parmenter and Aurora. Those are the areas that are going to have the water main replacement as well as the roadway replacement. And when I say roadway replacement, the focus will be in between the curbs. As you all know, the city invested in the downtown brick replacement project here a number of years ago. And so those brick areas are trapped in between the existing curb and gutter and the existing sidewalks, both of which are in quite good condition. And so we plan on leaving all of those elements that were recently put in. So those were the blue areas I mentioned. The green areas, we have Elmwood and then South Parmenter Street. There we're looking at mainly a pavement replacement areas, just some very minor utility repairs. There's a couple of storm sewer items that we need to address. Otherwise, just mainly replacing, like I said, the pavement. The areas that were added since last year would be South Parmenter, kind of in the bottom left-hand corner. In this photo, north is to the right. But that area kind of coming down the steeper hill was added. I believe that'll be a city capital funded portion of the project. And then the other section that was added was on the very top of the photo, which would be the kind of the western end of Elmwood between Aurora and Cayuga. And there again, just a pavement replacement area of the project. All in all, just to try to get everything buttoned up in the downtown here at one time. When Middleton Phase 2 was completed, the entire, we call it kind of the L on Hubbard there, that was all repaved. So that has fresh pavement on it already, which is why it's not highlighted. And then there's a couple red dots. I know it might be kind of hard to see, but the pedestrian improvements on the Parmenter area that were proposed. If you remember, the Public Works, I have another slide here coming up, but the council authorized earlier this year, I believe it was in January, to add the stop signs on Parmenter at the Hubbard intersection. So those are the two red dots. Kind of right here. I guess I have control over the mouse, so I can use it. Kind of here at this intersection at Hubbard. So those stop signs, I believe, initially were put in as temporary, but now have been put in as permanent installations. And then the one red dot here on Parmenter, just north of Terrace Avenue, that is the one location where we are still proposing the small median island there and the goal is to hopefully help the motorists traveling northbound up Parmenter coming down the hill to slow down as they're coming and entering the core downtown. The thought process there is by having that median island, to make drivers feel a little bit more uncomfortable and having them slow down as they enter into the Terrace intersection. If you remember, we had thrown out there just as an idea a year ago at the first PIM to have additional median islands here kind of on each side of the intersection. However, it was decided that there would be too many parking stalls lost as one of the reasons to not implement those. And also, like I mentioned, the council voted to install the stop signs to help with traffic calming at that intersection. I know there's a lot of text here, but I can kind of walk you through it. So this is our current kind of staging or phasing plan that we have. And this is kind of the reverse of what we were showing last year. And I'll walk through the phases here in a second, but our focus as of last year, we were planning on starting on Parmenter. However, with Middleton Phase 3 currently under construction and continuing to be under construction through approximately May of next year, we reversed kind of the order to start kind of as far away from Middleton Center Phase 3 as possible and kind of work our way toward that area so that ideally construction is complete on the building project before that section of Parmenter is under construction and torn up. I guess we thought that'd be a good idea for a couple of reasons. A, just for truck access for the construction project, for deliveries, but also so that we don't have a brand new street put in place and then have construction activity beat up the new road. So I guess from the top here real quick, this is what's currently in our drawings. We have Phase 1 starting up here on the Aurora Street portion of the project. Again, we have water main replacement to go in just on that one block, and then the roadway rebuild with new base course, and then asphalt. The one thing I guess I would mention is that we probably will need some direction at some point from the city on how to exactly write our specifications. Is we have quite a few different phases here that we're going to be talking about. And, one option would be to have the contractor leave those phases as base course and then move on to the next phase and do their work and then pave it all at once. Another option would be if it is really important for the business owners in the city to at least get the first layer of asphalt, the binder layer on, before moving on to the next phase, that would be an option that we could pay, put in the bid, probably pay a little bit of a premium. to do that. However, I can make a cleaner, kind of cleaner site or cleaner street, I should say, for access for businesses and residents. So again, sorry, phase one, we have Aurora, and then after that's complete, we currently have phase two here in blue in the middle. So that's Elmwood from Aurora to Parmenter. This may or may not be able to be completed along with phase one. I guess we haven't quite decided yet, but either way, we're going to try to allow right turns kind of through the L here on Aurora, so that so traffic can come back out on Elmwood, so that we can keep this L open as long as possible. During excavation and paving days, things like that at the intersection, we'll have to shut down the L for short periods, but we're trying to limit that as much as possible. And then phase three we have here in orange. So that would be the north half of Parmenter Street, basically starting at the southern edge of University, where we left off on the University project, down through the intersection of Elmwood. And we show it stopping there so that traffic could still continue to use the Elm or the Hubbard intersection. We're trying to leave one of these intersections open to through traffic at all times, essentially, either Elmwood or Hubbard. So again, that's phase three, and we do have water main as part of this project as well on Parmenter. And then yellow, we have the phase four area. So again, we've got water main on this portion as well, all the way down to Terrace Avenue. And again, while the yellow portion is open, while the yellow portion is under construction, we hope to have the orange portion here open for traffic so that we can get vehicles in and out of the downtown.
And I think it pays to mention too, your note on the bottom of this slide, Tom, just indicates that even during the portion where an intersection is under construction, we'll try to keep cross traffic open as long as possible. So even in that orange piece, if people just need to get across Parmenter on Elmwood, the intention is to allow that to the degree possible. Sooner or later, it'll have to be closed, and then Hubbard's all that's left. But that's part of the planning here.
Yeah, correct. Thanks for the reminder, Sean. Yeah, for example, when the water main crew shows up to start on Parmenter at the north end, there's really no reason that they should not be able to allow traffic through on Elmwood, as Sean mentioned. If the work is kind of focused at the north end down here, and this intersection is pretty quiet, so traffic can go through that way. And then we're showing right now phase 5 as the additional pavement areas that were added on. So again, that's the South Parmenter area from South Ave down to Terrace. The reason we show a gap here is that the Terrace intersection was done about 5 years ago as part of the Terrace Ave project. So that pavement is still in great condition. And then we have the very western segment of Elmwood here as well, up to Cayuga, approximately where I think there's an area of concrete pavement here that's fairly new that we'll be butting up against there. And then to get the best finished product, we would still like to see at least the surface layer of the paving. That all be done at one time, just to prevent multiple joints everywhere and things like that. We feel it's going to deliver the best product for the city in the long run.
You may have to click on it again someplace, Tom.
Okay.
There you go.
Yep. So again, kind of back to the buffer island and the stop signs discussion. I think I mentioned this already, but as a reminder, the new stop signs at the Hubbard intersection were installed based on council authorization back in January of this year. And then last year at the Public Works Committee meeting, again, almost a year ago to the day, on the 28th of October, 2019, that's when the recommendation was made to just go with the one buffer island, again, on Parmenter, just north of Terrace Avenue. As you recall, on Terrace Avenue, there's stop control on Terrace, but not on Parmenter Street. So the hope there is that, again, have that median island there to hopefully help slow traffic down traveling northbound into the downtown. And then I wanted to mention briefly, I know downtown parking was the hot topic last year at the PIM. And we kind of had a chart that showed, you know, if you go with the buffer island, you're going to lose X parking stalls, for example. But then again, with the downtown plaza project, when that occurs, there's two, I know it's hard to see, but here, the green kind of boxes, there's two old driveway locations that will be closed up, and the city will be getting back 2 parking stalls there. So with the new recommendations, we're at a net parking gain or loss of 0. It's a wash because with the new buffer island here at Terrace, we are going to lose 2 on-street stalls there that'll have to be painted yellow, only because there's just not enough street width to put a median island in, and to have a drive aisle, and to have a parking lane there and still allow emergency access in and around those. So you will lose 2 stalls here. However, the downtown will be gaining the 2 stalls over here by the plaza on Elmwood, again, for a net loss of gain loss of 0. So we just briefly hit on some of this last year. You know, most of the discussion was focused more on schedule and things like that with in the downtown parking. I guess based on previous discussions with the city planning staff, and I guess for, you know, maybe some also discussions with committees, a couple of the 2 items as far from a streetscaping perspective that we're planning on incorporating into the project as of right now, but still open to ideas, of course. The first one is decorative crosswalks, likely at both intersections on Parmenter, at both Hubbard and Elmwood. The direction or the feedback that we received was that the city does not prefer concrete crosswalks, just due to maintenance concerns and potential differential settlement next to asphalt, and having the asphalt next to the concrete and having issues with plows hitting them or trip hazards. And so we'll be looking into different options for stamped colored asphalt to have. And there's a variety of different things that are out there. You know, the most standard is just more of a stamped brick pattern that I've seen on multiple jobs, but it's just something, again, hasn't been decided yet, but was something that we received feedback on from the city previously that they would like to do. In addition to the crosswalks, I know city planning staff also had thrown out there an idea of either one or both of the intersections of Parmenter Street at either Halberd and or Elmwood, of having some type of center type medallion, I guess, for lack of a better term, a stamped colored medallion of some sort, graphic to be determined, I guess, to have in one of those intersections. So I think that's still kind of open for discussion or ideas. Again, we're focused on maybe, you know, some of the other more general items of the project first before getting in the weeds on some of that stuff. And then really the only other current kind of more aesthetic thing that we can do is it'll be a small item, but as part of that buffer island that I mentioned, the interior of that buffer island in between the, you know, in the inside of the curb areas, I should say, you know, can be more of a decorative colored stamped concrete, perhaps to match the rest of the brick in the downtown or something like that. From what I remember on the conversation, you know, since the city's already invested in some of the other entities in the downtown, such as the porous clay brick pavers in the terraces, you know, the street lighting, I think the city was fairly happy with. I think the direction or the feedback that we received during the last PIM was that with the downtown plaza project, perhaps coming here in the near future, you know, let's focus some of the more aesthetic and noteworthy features down in the plaza area for people to enjoy and save, you know, some of the budget for that area. So those are just some of the items right now that we're looking into as we advance the final design. And then looking at the overall project timeline, so right now, everything kind of just got shifted tentatively 1 year. So here we're at the end of October. We're kind of ramping up design again to look at finishing our bid package with the drawings and specifications here at the end of 2020. The next kind of critical path step would be to come back to Public Works Committee and Council and then ask for final kind of feedback on, would you like us to go out to bid? Yes or no. And so the plan, again, we'll finalize the bid docs, get things ready. I think the two potential meetings that Sean Olsrud and Sean Stowski and I were discussing would be either the December 14th meeting to ask for further direction from you on that, or we could potentially do it on the January 11th meeting, or get feedback during both meetings. I guess that's kind of up to you. And that would give us direction then to go out for bids here at the very end of January. We had penciled in an advertisement date of January 28th to be the first day of advertising for bids. The second date would be a week later on the 4th. And then we would have a bid opening tentatively set for the middle of February of 2021, with the Public Works Committee then potentially awarding a bid on the 22nd of February. And then, so if all that process continues to go through, we would be looking at a potential tentative start date for a contractor to start in April, is kind of what we were looking at. And then the next slide I have is just kind of, I've added the bottom row here. The stuff on the top is the same. But we'd be looking at, our best guess right now at a construction duration, we're thinking about 3 months in all, 12 weeks plus or minus is just kind of our best guess at the construction timeline. And so you'd be kind of walking through the stages here. If they did start in April, we'd be looking at sometime in July completion date. We don't have a set substantial completion date set up in the contract yet, but that's one of the things we'll be talking with Sean and others about here moving forward.
And I think some of what affects that too is future decisions yet, like how many paving mobilizations do we have? The more of those we have, the longer this project takes.
So as far as the presentation is concerned, that's really all we had for tonight, but just wanted to hit the highlights. Some of it, again, as a review, some of it was modified based on the recommendations that we received from the committees last year about this time. And so currently we're at, maybe like an 80% design level, and, certainly open for any other feedback or suggestions as we kind of wrap up the design phase.
Thanks, Tom. And Bob, I know Kathy Olson has her hand up.
Okay, Kathy.
I do have a couple of questions. Do you want me to just go through all of them, or you want me to take a question and wait for other questions, or how do you want me to?
I guess I don't have a preference. Do you, Sean?
No, for me, one at a time is good.
Okay. I'm not really familiar with what a binder layer is. Is this what you're saying would take longer if we include binder layers along the way? It would extend the timeline?
So there's a lower layer and then an upper layer. And it's pretty normal to be able to pave the lower layers first and have a little bit of a delay before putting on the top coat, the right. Upper layer. It's just when we break this into little bite-sized pieces, like doing it block by block, it's more efficient if we can just leave those as gravel until we get a couple phases done and then put the lower layer on, maybe 2 or 3 phases at a time instead of each phase at a time.
Okay.
Because then we have to shape the gravel, but only little pieces of it, and then get a paver in here and pave that, and then go start to take out the next block, if that makes sense. So if for a period of, say, a month, we can drive on gravel, well, then we're not trying to build this one block at a time. In terms of the asphalt, we could put on maybe 2 or 3 blocks at a time.
Tom, could we go back to the slide that showed the different phases in different colors?
Yeah. One more.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
So would you say like phase, well,
so the green one
is-
has water main, for instance.
yeah.
Right. So that's going to take a little while, and nothing else will be taken out during then. But rather than putting blacktop on there, the bottom layer of blacktop on there before going to phase 2, which is largely just new asphalt,
Yeah.
it would be more efficient overall to take off the asphalt from that blue piece and shape up both the green and the blue piece before putting on the bottom layer.
So would you say like phase 1 and phase 2, you would do a binder layer on those two together, 3 and 4 together, and then on 5 you would finish up and then do all the top asphalt at once then?
We're much better off waiting with the surface until last,
Yeah.
because we'll get a lot fewer joints in there.
Yeah.
It might even be more efficient just looking at this to say, do the green piece, the blue piece, and the upper purple piece, because that's also just pavement. And
okay.
then that whole side of the project is basically done and open and dust free and smooth.
Yeah.
At the lower layer, but pretty much we're out of their hair. And the only reason we're going to come back is to put the surface on last.
Okay.
I
Because
could
you don't
see,
really want a lot of dust if people are like in the green and they're trying to use the outdoor space there. If we could keep the dust down in that area while the rest of it's going in. Is that what you're thinking? Like Elmwood not having that just gravel?
they wouldn't have to take out the blacktop on the blue or purple pieces
okay.
until
okay.
they're close to ready to pave that whole section, if that makes sense.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Then they can take the blacktop off, shape up the gravel, do a little bit of casting work on manholes, and then just pave that whole thing.
Okay.
Potential. I mean, that's just an option, but it's more efficient than saying, well, let's wait for a paver to come in 3 times. We're just waiting for a paver to come in once.
Okay.
You know
but
what
you're
I mean?
saying, yeah, phases 1, 3, and 4 are going to be down to the doing a lot of digging and down to the, not just a quick redo on the top.
Each of those take longest because of the water main.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And I just wanted to tell, one of the comments I have from one of the business owners is if it would be possible to get some sort of street light in around that Stonehorse Green area. I know there's one on the corner of Elmwood and Aurora right now. I did see that today.
Right. Yep. And then there's some of the lower level pedestrian lighting that's 13 feet tall, give or take.
Yeah.
And then, so mostly we've got streetlights at intersections in the downtown, and then the lower level pedestrian light fills in between the intersections.
Yeah. Are there a lot on Elmwood on that side? I didn't remember seeing.
Some of that I think hops back and forth.
Yeah, I think there's 2. I believe there's 2 on the south side of Elmwood, Sean, from what I remember.
That might be right.
Okay.
And then it feels like there's one over by Free House on the north side of the street.
Okay. Okay. So since it's usually, would it be possible to add electricity there if we're doing the street or something like that?
Well, here's the hard part. So if we're trying to light up Stonehorse Green, that's not street lighting, that's site lighting. And MG&E starts to get involved with rates at that point.
Okay, because they didn't know whether adding a street light while we're doing this would be really an involved process, but it sounds like it's more involved than just popping in a light.
It is, because it matters what we're lighting.
Yeah.
I would say too, on the south side of Elmwood, that terrace is filled with utilities, and even getting a base in there may be impossible.
Okay.
Got a lot of electrical running through there.
But we want site lighting in Stonehorse Green, right?
Eventually.
Okay. You optimists. Oh, Kathy. Right. So right now there's just temporary lighting. And I think one of the questions is, should we try to continue borrowing from Village Green, which volunteered to power
Right.
this year,
Yeah.
or piggyback off of some other city conductor someplace, in which case, if we were to piggyback off those low level lights, I think we could do that through an outlet, because I think those are metered, not flat rate through MG&E.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get the impression that the Village Green was opposed to us using their electricity for the lighting. I mean, I don't think that that's the biggest push. I think it was more that the lighting that they put up is it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah, it's temporary, but it's not pretty.
And
either.
that maybe a street light would cast a better light. So anyway, that was one of the comments. The other comment I got from was the downtown businesses wanted to make sure that with the option they asked for, that we'll still have another check-in in December or January and see how things are as far as COVID recovery. We talked about with the third option.
Exactly. And so the Public Works Committee already recommended that. So we're operating under that as part of our timeline. So what Tom just mentioned is if we can make that decision in January.
Tom mentioned bringing it to council, but we want to make sure we loop the businesses back in at that time also.
Right.
And I don't want that to be lost in this shuffle. Can I keep going?
For me, yeah.
Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about the buffer island. Will there be any parking between the railroad tracks and Terrace? It looked like there might be still some, but maybe like one spot on either side of that.
I believe there's only one stall then on each side, I believe. Because I think currently there's two on each side and we would be down to one on each side. I don't know the exact dimensions, Kathy, off the top of my head. If it was two, like, for example, very small cars versus one pickup truck, there might be room for two.
I'm wondering, and this is not a popular view with the downtown businesses, but they want to preserve as much parking as possible. Would a little bit bigger island and eliminate, how safety-wise, do you think that would have a better impact on the cars coming down the hill? Or would having cars parked there slow the cars faster than?
That's a good point. I think it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I think if there's the median in the middle and a car happens to be parked in that one stall that I mentioned up closer to the tracks, I mean, if visualize yourself coming up on that naturally, I think you're gonna, slow down a little bit more. Versus just kind of going around something quicker. But I guess
I would tend
it's hard to say. I think.
Yeah, I think that's a smart place for the island for the pedestrians. I really like that. Are you going to refer this for like the medallion and the street crossings to any other committees?
We didn't really get a lot of input, and I think if Plan Commission or the TIF working group would come up with some ideas, that might be handy to evaluate at the committee instead of trying to generate something. I could see the Plan Commission and the Art Committee, frankly, being pretty well set up to look into something like that.
Right, and I know Abby had some ideas, so either of those she would be able to run with, I would think, also. Let's see what else. I think that is all I had on that, other than one person was one of the businesses would prefer to wait a year, but the association as a group wanted to come forward with that third option yet. So
right. Okay. I don't know that there's going to be a right answer.
Right, there's not. So I think we just go with what we have right now. So I appreciate that. I like the presentation. Thank you very much.
Who's next?
Anybody else have questions?
I just wanted to ask one quick question. The median island that's on the north side of Terrace Avenue, was it looked at all to put that on the south side of Terrace Avenue, more on the residential side. Just intuitively, I think coming down that hill, it might be more effective because I'd be driving down the hill and my eyes might focus on the median instead of the intersection.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dan. And the difference is that additional kind of, we've extended the project limits since that decision was made, to go up the hill now as a pavement replacement. When we were having the median island discussion before, we were stopping at Terrace. There's going to be no work south of Terrace, but that has changed now. So that's a fair point to make that we should look into. I think it's, from a parking stall perspective too, if that does become, a hot topic again, that could be, 2 stalls that the downtown could get back if we thought that the calming effect of it was the same.
Yeah, I feel coming down the hill, if I'm going to adjust my speed, I'll be looking at the island and not the intersection. So I think it's too late in my travel down the hill. So, okay, good. Well, maybe we can look at that.
That's a good point. I think the one thing that it potentially misses is traffic coming off of Terrace Avenue. The island was intended in part to be sort of a welcome to downtown. You're in a pedestrian area, slow yourself down. And it would be on the wrong side of the intersection for those folks.
Okay, sure.
All right, further committee comments, questions?
This is Robert. The only other thing, that corner, isn't that Hope House?
It is.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to ask.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think if we were to even consider moving the island to the south side of Terrace, I'd have a lot of questions if we were to do that. So I think, Dan, it's a great question to ask, and I think it's something that should be looked at. But I already see a couple of, what Sean said was a good point, that we want to slow down traffic coming off of Terrace as well and have them cognizant of the speeds. But I also want to make sure with all the stuff that's going on at Hope House that we don't put some big obstacle right in the way of where people are going to be trying to come in and out of that driveway just a little bit further south yet. So
Tom, Plan Commission and I think Council approved a new parking lot and driveway and exit at Restoring Hope, and it comes on to Parmenter.
Yeah.
So that would probably definitely affect that island.
Yep, you're right. I think it would. And also just, in general for the construction activity, I know when we did Terrace Avenue, we were in very close, almost daily contact with them in regards to just dust control and things like that, related to obviously what their patients there. And so, we'll have to make sure the contractor is well aware of that as well here to make sure that the streets being watered, keep the dust down, disturbance, all that stuff.
But Sean or Abby should have the new plans.
Well,
what they're doing there.
Sure, that northerly egress driveway that's been designed is right turn only. So they will only be turning right to head north. And so an island in the middle of the street wouldn't affect that driveway.
Okay.
If anything, it'll help reinforce that they have to turn to the right.
Okay. What about getting out? I don't remember the details of it. So
yeah, that is them getting out, but they have to go north when they leave that site.
Would they potentially lose any street parking on Parmenter Street by putting the island on the south side of the intersection?
Potentially, yes. The west side of that street allows parking.
Yeah.
So it'd be 1 instead of 2, basically.
Okay. Further questions or comments from the committee?
Is there a decision on that? I know you said to look into it, but I'm not sure how Tom could evaluate which your preference is.
This is Robert. My preference is to leave the island on the north side of Terrace, but if somebody were to come back with a say, well, we never looked at it before, but we looked at it briefly and said there's 10 benefits to moving it to the south side of Terrace and only two bad things if we did that. I would want to know that information, but
okay.
My thought, all other things being equal, I have a slight preference for leaving it where it's currently proposed on the north side of Terrace.
I would just like him to look at it in terms of where is the safest place.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Especially for pedestrians.
Which place has the most impact on slowing the traffic would be the question I would ask.
And where would the most pedestrians be crossing would be another question.
True.
Yeah.
Yes.
But a third option would be to put one on both sides.
Okay.
That hits the
Well,
parking
look at
too
that
bad. Then.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You lose, the parking, will be impacted even a little bit more. The northern one could be more of an aesthetic gateway, entryway, type of feature to some extent. And then the south one could just, reinforce the slow down component. But I can get the site plan information from Sean and then at least sketch it up to see what,
okay.
Give Sean a recommendation back from us on what we think would be the best option.
Well, Tom, I always want the safer one.
This is Robert. The only other thing I would just throw out is if we could, Sean, kind of put a bug in somebody's ear, art commission and plan commission, so that they're thinking about decorative crosswalks. If I'm in charge of that, it's probably not going to be pretty. It's going to be very functional, but it wouldn't. I don't have a real artistic eye, so if maybe others on this committee would have more to say.
Well, it's fine to make it artistic, I think, but you've also got to be sure that it is functional, because the city had some bad experiences with paved crosswalks and things of that nature. You don't need to go through that again. And I don't know how any of these colored concrete mixes and what have you stand up to plow blades and salt and sand and whatever, but you don't want to be in a position where you do this, that we're going to have a beautiful artsy downtown for one winter, and after that it's going to all need repainting or redoing again.
Yeah.
Agreed. I want us to continue to do our job, but if people are talking about a decorative component, I'm not sure that we're going to be the ones to really have much to say on that, other than it needs to be functional, like you said, the first year and for many years to come.
Yeah, for a long time. You're not going to want to do this every 2 years.
Sure.
Sean, could you give that instruction to Abby and Plan Commission and the Arts Committee that
yes, mm-hmm.
functionality and ease of maintenance is a top priority over aesthetics?
Well,
It depends. Committee probably won't receive that very well, but
I was going to say to some degree it matters how you weight those things, because ease of maintenance would be don't do anything special or aesthetic.
Well,
that would be the easiest maintenance, but I understand there's a balance, right? So concrete has not worked well for us, but we could do a thermoplastic inlay sort of design.
Something with something with longevity.
Yeah. And those have a life to them before they start to get scuffed up and the edges start chipping. And they're fairly expensive to redo. But if this is a way that the city wants to do something different, then there's a cost to that. So.
All right. Well, I think we have expressed our preference for whatever the final design is, that it must be, among other things, highly functional and impervious to damage, hopefully.
That specific kind of approach, I guess, if you're looking for examples and wanted to check something out, or at least through Google Street View, check it out if you're looking from home. I know downtown McFarland area has the thermoplastic inset asphalt, stamped asphalt. It's a white brick pattern. And then Highway 12 in Sauk City does as well, also a white brick pattern. And those are just two I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah. And was there any sort of preference, direction, leaning toward how we should try to design a number of paving mobilizations?
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting, important question for a contractor.
Oh, Sean, if I could pipe in, I like doing the top coat all at once.
Agreed.
But that should be done between the hours of 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. Seriously, I mean, if you're talking extra cost to do startup and shut down and startup and shut down, not to mention the potential maintenance issues associated with it. Mm-hmm. If you were to do the finish coat at night after hours when there's no traffic, the commercial establishments aren't going to be screaming bloody murder that you're affecting their traffic in and out. There's not really a parking issue at that time of the night. It just makes a lot more sense. And I have seen cities do that just to avoid traffic issues and amongst other things.
And traffic control's a lot easier too. I know even south of here on the residential part of Parmenter Street, we did night paving.
But can you do, I mean, we were talking about holding off on the final paving till the end. Can you do all of those streets in a 4-hour period, 11 to 3?
No.
That's why I didn't mean to laugh, or I hope I didn't hurt him in his feelings, but just 4 hours just seemed like a very tight time constraint. If we're all, to say do it all in this 4-hour period, I think it's going to bleed out into either multiple days and or daytimes.
We could go later into the morning, I think, instead of starting earlier at night here. Yeah. From a business perspective, most of them really aren't rolling at 7 in the morning.
Right. I think we would have a better chance of starting at 4 a.m. The asphalt companies actually like doing that. So if we did a 4 to say 8 or 9 a.m. in 2 phases, we might be able to do something like that.
It could be done on 2 days.
Yeah.
And I would think that there was, just trying to visualize if there was a normal day paving all that. I mean, I'm thinking that's at least a 10 or 12-hour day to try to get all of that done. And that, I don't know, everything would have to go perfect, I think.
Yeah,
this could be the one job
there. That's another portion is the paving. We're going to have a flagman from the railroad, and I don't know what additional costs that would be to have somebody from the railroad there in the middle of the night, or if it's even feasible.
Even at that, it's so expensive to get those guys. It probably doesn't matter much.
Yeah. I think the binder course we could do in, I think, Tom, can you jump back to the phases?
Yeah, maybe two phases, maybe.
Yeah, so I think the purple, the green, and the blue could be a phase 1, orange is 2, and then yellow and the other purple would be 3. So I think we could potentially get that binder down to 3 if we were lucky enough to have another project going on with the same contractor. It might make it a little bit easier, but
yeah, it seems mobilization's always mobilization. There's never alignment of the stars, but I could see this being done in 2 or 3 binder mobilizations.
Yeah. Sean, is there a reason you broke apart orange and yellow?
Mainly because if we're trying to pave, we're going to build that in 2 phases, but if we're trying to pave all that in the same day with binder, traffic control could be a little hokey, but we might be able to work around that.
I
just thought with Elmwood and Hubbard Avenue.
Sure. I'm not opposed to doing it in 2 or 3. I kind of agree with the proposal to at least do blue, green, and the one purple in one group, and then whether orange is separate and yellow and purple are a third, or orange, yellow, and purple go together as one thing. I guess I would just say I leave it up to people who know more than I do.
Part of that,
My thoughts?
part of that maybe answer to Sean, both Sean's, I guess, is since, you know, the water main that's going in is along this entire length. I guess I'd have to think about exactly the sequence of the water main connections and then the, you know, the final turn-ons and disconnects. If there's something that they're going to have to come back to outside of the one color, that might be our answer. You know, if they can be truly separate or not. Like for the most part, they're going to be separate, but they might have to bounce back somewhere to, you know, to close something or to disconnect one of the mains. I guess I have to think about that a little more.
Yeah. I've always felt like gravel's pretty drivable as long as it's shaped, you know.
Agreed.
All right. Any further comments, or are we ready to move on?
I think that's great feedback. Did you have any other questions, Tom or John, that you were hoping for input on?
I don't think so. No,
All right.
I think that gives us good direction. So yeah,
Great.
Thanks for the comments.
All right. Well, thank you for your presentation, Tom, and for sitting through a less than productive public input session. But thanks.
No worries. I might have escape bath time tonight for the kids. So might be a bonus.
Okay. All right. Our next agenda item is Parkside Heights reconstruction amendment to the engineering agreement for construction phase services.
Right. Let me zoom in and I think I've rolled down too far. There we go. So we've got in our packets here some documentation and proposal for a second amendment, which is largely related to the need to go into Century Avenue itself and replace some water main that our record drawings didn't show accurately as being older water main. So we picked that up at the same time and did a bunch of extra work with repaving that intersection, most of you know, on a Saturday is my recollection. And then there was a little bit of additional services that we requested because of a leaking water service at one of the homes that the resident clued us into, that it was just noisy. Well, it turns out that the tap into the main was faulty. So the contractor went back and fixed that, but Veerbicker on our behalf helped with witnessing and documenting that. So in my mind, this is entirely justified as $6,600 goes.
So this is money that has already been spent, Sean?
Yeah, well, encumbered, not paid.
Okay. And my understanding of this is that the $460 that dealt with the leaking water service is going to be deducted from the $6,627. Is that where we are?
It's part of that, is my understanding, yes. And I know Gary Blazik is on the line in case there are any questions of him, but that in a nutshell is my understanding here.
So again, it's going to be, if there's a motion to approve this, the outlay is going to be 67 or 6627.50 minus 460.
Correct. That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay.
I believe that's correct too, Sean. This is Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
All right, committee questions?
I have no questions. I would, this is Robert, I'd make a recommendation to the Finance Committee and Common Council to accept this contract amendment with Veerbicker in an amount not to exceed $6,627.50. And then if we can claw back the 460, great. But I would just throw in this the not to exceed $6,627.50.
Right, exactly, because those are the services we're contracting with Veerbicker for. It's a totally separate contract between us and the contractor.
Right.
So, okay.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second. This is Dan.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Questions? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that will be our recommendation to the Finance Committee and the Council.
All right.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
Yep.
So then we've got on the agenda, and you've all seen this now, the TIA for Trotta we had approved with one contingency a few weeks ago, but it turns out that contingency is not feasible for the owner, and frankly, probably not usable for most of the people who would be driving in and out of these apartments. It's fairly circuitous through the Lucigen parking lot. So the request is to approve the TIA without an access easement through the Lucigen site.
All right. Any questions, committee members?
I was just looking at the map. If there was any way that you could have a place to do a U-turn before the intersection, is that feasible?
If you were southbound, let's say, heading toward downtown,
yeah.
There's no place prior to the intersection to do a U-turn and still make it into this driveway, because it's between that first median break and Donna Drive. So what they'd have to do is either go around the block down Laura, Lisa to Donna Drive, or from the east down Northbrook or Patty to Donna Drive, or just keep going through Donna Drive intersection, do a U-turn down by that first median breakdown by Bruce Company, and then come back to the north.
I was referring to if we were to break up the median and put a turn through the median.
Oh, full access at that driveway. We did look at that, and that's in the TIA report with advice not to do that. It's already as close to the signalized intersection as we want to be.
Okay.
Good question.
Can you look at page 30 of the PDF?
Sure, let me just get there.
Or page 30 of the report, 9, it is...
That was, oops. Is it this one?
Yeah, that's it. So what's happening at the north end of that facility?
Up here?
It almost looks like it's hooked into the parking lot for the liquor store.
This was initially designed in 2005 as part of that state project to turn Highway 12 into Parmenter Street. This was designed as a shared access driveway. But at the time, there wasn't anything written or recorded. It was just understood to be shared access. And O'Connell's apparently were not willing to continue sharing with this development. So they said, well, we won't allow that. And I think their fear was that apartment tenants, visitors, what have you, would drive through O'Connell's parking lot to get to Lisa Lane as an intersection rather than turn in and out here.
That
would have allowed this
U-turn. Drawing shows.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know now if this developer is negotiating with O'Connell's to allow them to use this southern half of their driveway. It strikes me as something that's unfortunate and silly, but for whatever reason, they didn't reach agreement on the continued shared use of that.
Okay, because it certainly looks like this is designed to integrate right into the O'Connell parking lot.
Right, and I don't know how much of that is just fear or past history. I don't know.
Okay.
This is Mark Opitz. May I make a comment, please? From
Sure.
Plan.
If Bob says yes, it's yes.
Go ahead, Mark.
Thanks. I just joined. I entertained numerous phone calls from the O'Connells, and I don't understand either why what their concern is, other than the potential for cut through. I feel that with time that could prove to be, not a problem for the liquor store. Frankly, I think they would get more business, but that's their decision, not mine, not ours. But we did recommend that repeatedly, and we're at an impasse. The developer was at an impasse with the O'Connells. So I don't know if they're present on the call.
I didn't see anybody representing them, no.
Yeah.
But that was my understanding too, is they tried, it just didn't work out.
Yeah, we encouraged them extensively.
All right, committee, any further questions, comments? And what we're being asked to do is approve the
TIA without
TIA
contingency.
without access through the Lucigen parking lot.
Well, this is Robert. I don't love it, but I don't have a reason to not approve the TIA, I guess.
I think the only person that has a negative effect here is the development that's going in, and they should fight harder for something if they need it, or be willing to make compromise to their property to allow something different. I guess I'm fine with what we're asked to do.
So I'll make the motion to approve the TIA without the contingency.
We have a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it. This is Dan.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussions or further questions? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Okay, next up is a resolution to grant a permanent stormwater easement to Triton Auto Spot, and that development, many of you may know, is up in the Tribeca area. So they've got a site plan proposal to stub their private storm sewer pipe from site drainage into an existing city manhole that's on city property, and they will just need an easement to allow that private pipe to be constructed on city land. It's not uncommon. In fact, it's better than their original design, which was to add another manhole online just so that they'd connect to it on their property. There's really no point in that. So staff is in favor of it.
Sean, is there any concern about the additional water?
That's coming either way.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've got their on-site stormwater management, and this is site drainage that's already approved.
If it doesn't adversely affect stormwater, it does seem like it's a fairly clean solution here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Susan, do you have any thoughts, Susan?
No, it
no
seems
concerns?
reasonable.
Okay. Well, then I would, again, on this one, make a motion to approve this permanent easement, or recommend approval of this permanent easement.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second to Robert's motion?
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions, committee members? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we will recommend that the council approve this easement.
All right. Next up is the concept for potential release of part of County Highway M, Century Avenue, just west of Branch Street. You probably know it as the Branch Street Retreat, but it's had some more recent names. And in terms of just thinking about potential redevelopment or adaptive reuse. In fact, let me just go down to a nice drawing of that. Well, not nice. It's a sketch. Let's call it what it is. So already the monument sign is in the right-of-way, and a little bit of parking lot is in the right-of-way, which is sort of this black line. The concept that we're thinking about just at the staff level is to translate that into more of an orange line sort of shape. I think what the county did when they got this right-of-way was, they were just thinking about big site triangles. But that's when Century Avenue was 2 lanes wide and few people were probably on Branch Street. And now that we have signalized control, there is just no need for this much vision clearance. And frankly, it's not clear. There's trees here and a sign there. Now, those are encroachments the county could order removed. But I suspect that they'd be open to releasing this wedge of right-of-way, potentially for a price that's unknown yet. But we haven't gotten into serious talks with them just yet either. I just had at one point sent to them this sketch, and they didn't flatly say no. They just mentioned that if for some odd reason we needed to reacquire that in the future, the city would have to pay for its reacquisition and the county would not. And that seems fair. Why would they give something away and then buy it again later?
Sean, since this is going to be developed, could the developer purchase that piece of land?
From my perspective, yes, if that's part of their plan.
Because it would make sense. I know I was getting the impression one of the big concerns is we don't want them, and please excuse Winston.
He's in attack mode.
Yes, he's hungry. But we want to protect the creek corridor. So having a developer put their building closer to Branch Street and Century would be better than pushing it towards the creek.
Well, I don't think they can put it too close to the creek. There's, a setback for environmental corridor purposes.
Right, but
I don't think we want it too close to the street either. I don't know if that would just better be suited for a little bit of a frontage parking area. Mark probably knows way more about that than certainly I do, if he's still on this call.
I'm here.
There he is. There he is. As to what use might be put to this land, I don't know. I don't know.
4-story building, apartment building.
Right there, right at the corner.
Yeah.
We have received inquiries from various parties, including reuse of the site of the building and putting up a brand new building, including a multi-story building. And so having an angle like that is not as conducive for site development. And so that's why we suggested from a planning standpoint, let's see if this is an option to have this declared surplus, if you will, and then potentially acquired by a developer.
Could you explain the pale green line?
This one up here?
Yeah.
That sort of runs east-west. That is an existing storm sewer pipe.
Oh, okay. And that runs along the other axis as
well. So that goes to the creek.
What's the real pale?
So everything in this color scheme, I would call it cyan in a perfect world, is storm sewer piping. And then the darker blue lines are water mains and the green lines are sanitary sewer.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, the sanitary sewer.
Okay, yep, sanitary.
We heard any of that.
No, I think we would just have to retain some sort of easement, along that storm sewer here, so that we could get at it again later. But if they put parking lot there, that'd be great.
Would we Would there be any conditions on this transfer that where they'd have to move the monument sign off of the easement?
Out of the county's right of way? I would bet on it. Yeah.
Okay. So they're gonna ask for that?
It shouldn't be there anyway. It's on top of our storm sewer.
Right.
What's
so
the monument? I'm not familiar with the monument sign. What's the monument sign advertising?
It's
I think the Common Ground Coffee.
Yeah, what it was, the Common Ground Coffee.
Well, if this gets redeveloped, that sign would move anyway, right?
It really
but it could. It could be, they could just put new signage up if there's not a requirement for them to tear down the whole monument sign. So
it would look much better with a totally new sign. That sign's been there 30 years.
And what we're saying though is that the old sign almost has to go, although that right now I think that's a county decision, not our decision, and that any new sign would have to be on the other side of that orange line if assuming that this happens.
I think you have the option to negotiate this if you're allowing us to dispense with some excess property. You probably can ask about moving the sign at the same time, because it looks like that would be in the sight line.
Yeah.
For cars wanting to turn.
Yeah, if someone's sitting here at a stop line, the good news is that, when they get their green light, these folks have a stoplight, so it almost doesn't matter if they see them unless someone's on a bike just screaming down the hill and ignoring the stoplight. But I think our bigger problems are, number one, we don't permit private signs in rights of way and not on top of city utilities.
Right. And Sean, also, we have guidelines for basically the architectural standards for anything going in this area. And I don't think that current sign meets those standards.
Oh boy. Once you said aesthetics, I was out.
So I'm not sure if we're going off topic, but I see no reason not to. I don't know if the correct wording is declaring this excess or releasing a portion of the right of way as it states here in the agenda. But I don't see a problem with that. My question before I make any motions is all this other stuff about removal of monument signs or anything else, is that something we're even really discussing today? Is that something that you want information from us on?
I don't think so. Robert, did you read the guidelines for the historic area there?
I did. I didn't. It was a single page thing, so I'm not sure that I read anything about monument signs, though.
No, but I think in general, that monument sign doesn't meet the standards.
Okay, but is that...
And we've dealt with it for the stagecoach development and even for the Stam House.
But that's not what's being asked of us tonight.
No, that's not what's being asked. So I think that's sort of irrelevant.
Go ahead to approach the county and see if the county is interested in releasing the land, correct?
Yes.
Right. And if it would have a price or what are their terms.
Well, you could buy it and then sell it back to the developer to profit. That would work.
Yeah.
We'll call this the Sean Stalsky vacation fund corner.
There you go. That's my retirement fund right there.
Right there.
Or that will be our TIF contribution, which would be a lot less than what they'll probably ask for.
So
all right. So do we want to give them the go ahead to approach the county and find out what's possible with this piece of land?
Yeah.
Question.
Again, there's multiple people looking potentially to bid on this. Is this a city? Is the city spending our time and money to approach the county on this topic? That was my understanding, actually. Not.
Well,
Go ahead.
Sorry
go
about
ahead,
that.
Sean.
I would say that right now it's just a staff level discussion that we just wanted to find out from them, number one, are they in fact willing? And two, what would be their price? Because timing can be variable. We don't, I mean, let's say they're going to sell it. We don't have to right now buy it. We could at least know that, so that when we're talking to developers, redevelopers, that we could say, oh, we've already sort of pre-negotiated this, and here's what you would need to do to get that land. That would be handy to know from their perspective.
That's fair.
Brings more people into the process then.
Yeah.
More potential bidders.
Yeah, and this property is for sale right now.
Sure.
That's what I've read on a sign.
It is.
Okay.
May I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Sure.
Hearing the discussion about the monument sign, and it is a non-conforming sign, perhaps any motion could specifically state that under no way, shape, or form is this intended to increase the, or lessen the non-conformity of the sign. I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase it. But in other words, you're not giving any rights to that sign by making the right of way, or by trying to have more of it be on private property. You know what I mean?
It couldn't anyway.
Yeah, another way of saying this.
Required to take it out.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would just say this should be taken out no matter what happens. I just don't know if it's appropriate as part of this motion.
It doesn't feel like it. We were just wondering if we want to have that conversation. I would support if the county would say, by the way, let's order the removal of that sign from our right of way now that you've flagged it for our attention.
Could we make two motions, one to get the land from the county, and a second motion that if we do acquire the land from the county, we will request the owner of the property to remove the monument sign because it's non-conforming.
I think you could make those two motions.
Susan, if you make that motion, I'd be happy to second that.
Okay, I will make the two motions. Sean, did you get them written down?
I'm about to say, thank the gods this video is working, but I'll make up the second one. You'll know what you said tomorrow.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding Susan's motion and Robert's second, and that her motion was if the city acquires the property. I didn't think we were going to acquire the property. We were just going to check on its availability to give that information to developers.
Right.
Is that correct, Sean?
Well, I think we were just on a fact-finding mission here, that if we
so
got support, we want to find out what it takes. But I would be happy as staff to include that in our discussions with the county if they want to order its relocation.
No. I'm more concerned about Susan's motion that if we acquire the property, and I didn't think we were going to acquire it, we were just going to investigate its availability from the county.
So I think maybe we need to modify the language of the motion a little bit.
Don, how would you like it modified?
Just to allow Public Works to proceed with their investigation on the availability of the property. Easy for me to say.
Maybe that's all we need to do now, and as soon as we know if it's possible to get the land, then we come back and do something about the monument sign when we know more.
It seems likely to come up in our conversation anyway.
Excellent. Yeah. If that is the motion, I will second that motion.
All right.
All right, now who made the motion? Don, you just made that motion?
I did make that motion, but
right. We have a motion and we have a second. Further discussion on that motion? Hearing none. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. And Sean, you can report back to us at some point as to whether we may have another motion to make or not.
All right. That sounds fine.
Okay.
The only other agenda item was the just sharing of information of the design study report for Pleasant View Road. It's a lengthy read. I don't know if there were any committee comments that I should carry back to the author, but none are necessary that I know of.
Who is the author, by the way? Is this authored by the state?
Strand Associates.
Strand, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no action required?
None required, no.
Okay.
Does anybody have any suggestions to make?
I have a question, if I may ask.
Sure.
On page 12 of this document, 12 of 159, page 10 of 33 at the bottom of the page is what I see on my copy. 10 of 33, so it's probably up north,
up a
north
few.
of there.
Yeah.
North.
Gotta go,
really
right, I gotta go north.
Really good with directions, aren't I?
Are we here?
Yeah, it says American Transmission Company, lower half of the page. That's the one.
Okay, got it.
So my question there, I highlighted it to just say, do we currently have ATC electric transmission towers on Pleasant View Road on the north property line of the Pleasant View Golf Course?
Yeah, it goes up the west side, and then at on the top of the hill where that big steel tower is, and it starts turning west. That's all ATC stuff.
So none of this is new. It's already there, is what
Correct.
I think I'm hearing. Okay.
Yep.
Well, that may answer.
I think this report is pretty much all about the existing conditions. Correct?
Well, that's helpful.
Yeah, it's essentially what we're dealing with.
Okay. Well, other than I learned a lot about rusty patched bumblebees and northern long-eared bats by reading this. There was some kind of interesting stuff in here, but if it's just informational, I don't have any questions or changes other than that.
Okay.
All right. If there are no suggested changes to make, we can file that in our memory banks and move on to our next item on the agenda, which is?
That would just be adjournment.
Adjournment. Or we can sit and talk some more.
As long as it's on the agenda, we can.
True.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I would make a motion to adjourn.
All right. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. A motion and second to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Next trip.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Great. Yep. Have a good night.
Good night.
So long, everybody.